flew over the city a couple of days later, and at 1,400 feet, you could smell the odor of the city, which was just this amazing stench.
Mark Schleifstein won the Pulitzer Prize for his reporting of Hurricane Katrina. He predicted the storm would come and feared the levees would indeed fail.
The engineers that built these projects all had the ability of looking at this and saying, hey, we've done this wrong. You know, you think about a major metropolitan city with 80% of it underwater, and it just boggles the mind. You could literally drive from New Orleans Airport to Venice, which is 90 miles, and the entire way for 90 miles. I mean, that's a huge, huge amount of devastation that was occurred by this storm.
What he and many others didn't predict was the failure of the federal government in its response to such a disaster.
They're using a different playbook than everybody else down here was using. Everybody else here turns to page 2 and says, well, the feds are supposed to be here in 2 days, while the feds are going, well, we need an official note from each individual emergency preparedness leader saying they need our help. Well, they'd already done that.
But now, more than 2 years later, many simply cannot foresee a brighter future.
There will still be devastation here 10 to 15 years from now. You'll still see communities that look like they were bombed out.
The city of New Orleans, or quite simply, what was left of it. Hollow homes, hollow lives, a city with its soul torn out. And for so many, the devastation was beyond anything they could have imagined.
Well, the walls of the levee were put up just a few years ago, and they gave us, I think, a false sense of security here, because you never saw the water, and no matter how high it rose, you had the feeling that, you know, it was being controlled and could be pumped back into the lake or what have you. So I had that false sense of security. You know the water is there, but you don't see it, so you don't feel the danger. So I didn't think that the levee walls would give way like they did, no. I went through this sort of spiritual thing where I went out to the lake. Lake Pontchartrain is very close by, and sort of try to feel or sense what the weather was like, and I didn't get good signals. Basically, you know, I was just trying to sense if it was coming, and the signal that I got was, I'm coming, you better get out. I'm coming for you.
Dr. Michael White would finally heed the warning signs, fleeing the flood before his house was inundated. But for one of New Orleans' most prominent jazz musicians, returning home to survey the damage was like seeing part of history washed away.
I had instruments that belonged to musicians that played with Jelly Roll Morton that were competitors to Louis Armstrong. I had a lot of stuff in here.
Homes here may eventually be rebuilt, but residents have lost more than a roof over their heads. They've lost part of themselves.
The first time I opened the house and saw everything scattered all around, it was like not looking at my possessions or my life's work. It was like looking at my own body, torn and scattered into bits and pieces all over the house, and it was a horrible feeling. You feel like everything is over. You don't know when, if, or how you can ever start again, where you would start, because at that moment I really realized more than ever before that everything was gone. Everything was gone. 30 years of memories, 30 years of hard work, 30 years of collection, spending quite a lot of money, quite a lot of time, quite a lot of love, just all gone.
More than 1,000 people lost their lives as a direct result of Hurricane Katrina. Unofficial estimates say the number is 4 times that. But the psychological effect is still being measured.
We started gutting out the house, and after a few hours, I couldn't do anything else. I had to come out the house and I had to stop. I was starting to have breathing problems. Psychologically, I couldn't go back in the house.
If the return home has been difficult, the road to rebuilding has been plagued by financial and political potholes.
I think, you know, we had this false sense of security also, like with the levees, in the sense that we were protected and covered by, you know, the government, and that we would be taken care of. I mean, that's what we pay taxes for and all this. But there has been a general sense of abandon almost. If you look at the condition of the city today, it is basically deplorable.
The reality is that people are still struggling to find places to live or to deal with the places that they're living in. There are thousands of people still living in FEMA trailers, very small, basically holiday campers, where they're basically stuffed in a little metal box and living while they are trying to figure out how to rebuild their house. In a lot of cases, those people are caught in a situation where they're expecting to get money from a federal grant program called Road Home to help pay for the rebuilding of their house. But that program, which is run by the state, has been poorly operated and has been very slow in handing out money. It's been 2 years and they've barely given out a third of the money.
Mark knows personally how agonizing the recovery has been. This is what remains of his own family home.
Is there a definite feeling amongst those who live in New Orleans that the federal government is not doing what they should be doing in terms of getting things back up and running? Yeah, I think that's pretty clear from everything that you see.
We have been forgotten. I don't feel it, I know it. I live here. I see what happens every day, you know? At one time they would give assistance. Now the only thing keep us going now on hard days is churches. But we get nothing from the government. I mean, we are forgotten.
And when you see the lower 9th Ward today, you can see why residents have a right to feel forgotten. What used to be a thriving black neighborhood is an appalling wasteland, an area which looks like an atomic testing ground. Amongst the deserted homes, Stephen and Luana Ellis are trying to piece their lives back together. But together, parents of 7 children, they live a ghost-like existence, haunting reminders of what this area was once like.
Well, everywhere around now you see lots, abandoned lots. Well, those lots was once homes. These streets was full of people. I think they got maybe like in a mile area, my street runs about a mile, there might be about 4 occupants in a mile when it was over 400. It was the summertime, the kids had parks, playgrounds. You go to the park now, you gotta worry about snakes. You go to the park now, you gotta worry about the debris that's still in the park. It's not cool for your kids to get out your eyesight.
Trapped in a trailer with literally nowhere else to go, there is no hiding the fear of these people if a hurricane were to hit them again.
That's another thing. When storms come, we worry. I mean, we see clouds every day, and we worry, is this gonna hold? When, you know, when houses didn't hold, you know, and I live in the lower 9th Ward. I know what it was like. It's very hard. I mean, when your kids are used to running around playing, and now they confined to an 8 by 10 box, almost like they're in prison. They have to go to school. They have to catch the bus to school. I got a 4-year-old, he go to school. He's gonna have to catch a public transit way on 25 miles away. His first day of school gonna be 25 miles away because the school around the corner not built. I'd never let my son sign up for the military. Why should they fight for this country? This country won't fight for us now. You got a war, we funding a war in another country. Yeah, right. When you need to fund your people right here. You know, they're not doing nothing to help their own people.
Some would argue what happened in New Orleans exposed a dark side of America, and that here in the South, racial discrimination has once again reared its ugly head.
I wish it were as simple as saying that the leaders of the federal government were racist and were doing this for racist means, but I know that's not true just based on what they're doing. The reality is that there are thousands of white residents of New Orleans and the metropolitan area who have been devastated by this and are still homeless. There are more African Americans, largely because the worst damage was done to the largest population of African Americans in the metropolitan area.
If you're just not in that number of that quota, whether you're white or whether you're black, you're not getting it. You know, you're not getting it.
And that is the black and white reality in New Orleans.
There's a new reality about what New Orleans will be. A huge amount of the African American community is gone, and there are real questions about whether or not it will come back.
What happened in New Orleans was the worst natural disaster to be compounded by human failure in United States history.
I had a search and rescue case years ago where I didn't think that I would ever see anything that big. It was an oil tanker that had exploded off of the eastern coast of North Carolina. And then Hurricane Katrina happened.
What happened at the mercy of Mother Nature may have been inevitable. What hasn't happened since Hurricane Katrina is a sad reflection on human nature and the nature of a government which has turned its back on those most in need.
All you hear is who they blaming, who were wrong. We're not looking at who was wrong. It could have been handled in a very different way.
I don't have a choice. New Orleans music is my life, it's my heritage. While my head might be telling me something else, my heart tells me there's no choice. I have to be here. So, in a sense, I'm like the captain of the Titanic. I have to go down with the ship. Although we hope the ship won't go down.